Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Daisy Jones and the Six podcast. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut. It's another way to say Carpe Diem, and it's all about going after the things that you want in life. Something that I wanted to do this year is rewatch the show Daisy Jones and the Six, but this time talk about it with people. And I'm getting a chance to do an interview today with a very special guest. My guest today is Josh Whitehouse, who played Eddie Roundtree himself. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Hi.
It's so good to have you here. I will give a quick note to those who are listening. We're gonna spoil the show, all of it. And if that's a problem for you, go watch it real quick and then come back to this because it's 10 episodes and it's a good show. But so we're gonna do something of a deep dive on the show Daisy Jones and the Six. But Josh, before we get into the show itself, what was the process for you to get onto the show?
Oof. It was a big process. It was, I was in England and I had, actually the first time I heard about it, I was auditioning for Billy. I was in America and I went and saw them in person. I sang a song and then probably 3 months went by and I heard nothing. I was like, oh, well, I didn't get that then. No worries. And then I was back in the UK and I started getting auditions again, but for Eddie. And I think I must have done a total of 10 to 15 auditions for that part. In a way, like different variations of audition, because I did one on a tape and then casting wanted to get on the phone and they called me and they gave me some pointers about like more the direction of the character. So I tried again. And then they started going back and forth with me. Probably did like 4 tapes just for casting, but they liked me for the role. So they wanted me to get it just right before they sent it to the producers to try and encourage me to get the part, sort of thing. Yeah, and then I ended up being flown out, came to LA, did a screen test that was terrifying, met Will, who had just booked the part of Graham, and he was there in the office and he's like, yeah, dude, I just got the part. I don't know, like, cool. I was like, oh, so you're one of the guys that got it, huh? Ah! I hope that's me too.
Like, hopefully I'll be working with you soon.
Hopefully, see you. Yeah, I want to be on that side. Let me. um, yeah, and then we did this audition in front of everybody. It was very nerve-wracking. I read with Cami, and then it was kind of like I got it. It was like, yeah, you've got it, but we want you to read with some other people as well. And so then I just like kind of was doing additional auditions for the music department, for the producers, for the writers. Like they all just wanted to kind of have a play and see if it worked. And fortunately, I continued to pass. But it did. It kind of felt like I could lose it at any point. But I don't think I was going to do that. I think I was just very worried because I really liked the job and I really wanted it.
Your industry just sounds like such a nightmare for people who assume the worst. The fact that it's a real lesson that, okay, you tried for Billy, try for Eddie. Just keep trying, taking the meetings and doing these conversations. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was at a hotel with another guy that was going for my role, and we were like hanging out together afterwards, like, well, did you get it? I don't know. Did you get it?
Like, well, neither of us heard, so that's.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next day I was like, hey, guess it was me. Bye.
Well, I'm sorry to the other person, but I'm so glad that we got to see you in this role. Um, let's talk a little bit about like preparation for the music. First of all, I know you had co-written a song for The Night Before Christmas. Is that right?
Oh, I didn't co-write it. I wrote it.
You wrote it. So, how much background did you have with music before getting onto the show?
I've been writing songs and playing music since I was about 11.
Okay. So
Um,
then my understanding is that you all went to like a camp. You had a process for getting up to speed with the music theory,
yeah.
but you already had a background. So in preparing for this show, like what were you working on musically to get you ready to play Eddie?
Um, First thing was because we didn't have the songs yet. I was just listening to tons of music, from the 70s. Frankie Pine, the music producer, Scott and James Ponsoldt, our director, they all sent us playlists they'd been making from all their favorite musics that they thought that we would have been listening to at the time, and things like that, which was really helpful. And so my first thing was just listening and just absorbing the era while I was working out and things like that. And then, yeah, Blake Mills recorded all the music with a lot of other. They did some really cool co-writes like Marcus Mumford and Zeeberg, Pino Palladino. But they were all sort of working on those tunes over at Sound City, and then it was about 3 months before we were supposed to start filming. We were given the song, so I think it was in January, and we were supposed to start filming in April 2020. And so then we were supposed to just have 3 months to learn these songs, and we didn't have a Billy yet. They were still auditioning Billies. We kept meeting new potential Billies, and we were over at Sound City Studios, which was like our base, like our music base for 3 months. And we were just doing rehearsals there. And the idea was that we would all take our own little studio rooms and learn our parts. And we had music coaches that came in and worked with us. And the idea was that by the end of the 3 months, that we would all be able to come together and perform the songs and sort of rehearse as a band, which we did achieve, but much later than expected.
Yeah, timing wise, a lot of things happened once we hit 2020 that probably
Mm,
pushed the schedule back quite a lot.
So
Wow.
we ended up actually having 2 years to rehearse these songs. Um, but we were doing it all over Zoom like this, and each week we'd check in from lockdown and like hang out with the band over Zoom and stuff like that, which was kind of funny because we didn't know each other that well at that point as well. But it was cool because we kept on getting to know each other, So it had really good benefits, and also like Riley didn't play the guitar before, didn't consider herself a singer, and Sam same. Suki, same, didn't play the piano. They all learned from scratch for the job, which is ridiculous, really. I mean, I'd been playing since I was 11, but I was playing guitar. I had to learn the bass, but it's much less of a jump. It's still a jump, but much less of a jump. So those guys really pulled something off, I think.
It's amazing. Probably in some ways lucky that things got pushed, but of course we were all unlucky for why. But that's
Mm-hmm.
having the extra time, I think, really shows in the final product. So let's get into some of the episodes. So in episode one, which is Come and Get It, we're going to start off in 1968, and we actually start with a young version of you, a young version of Eddie, played by Josiah Serio, I think his name is. I'm curious how much, if any, conversation were you able to have with the younger version of Eddie? Was there any comparing notes that happened?
No, no, nothing like that. No, but they were on set and we all got to meet each other. I think we met once or twice. There was like a day when they were shooting the scene in the garage where the younger version of the band is playing. And then they were doing that, and we were going straight on to a scene of us when we were a little bit older after. I think it was the scene then where um, I'm blanking on his name, the guy that was going into to be a dentist.
Chuck.
Chuck, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Chuck was saying he wants to be a dentist. So they were in the same set. So they were like doing the garage scene, and then we just went straight to doing um, Chuck's scene. So that day we like all hung out a little bit, but we didn't really discuss character and stuff like that particularly. No, we were just like, hey, look, it's younger me, and like getting pictures taken and things like that.
I guess that's the beautiful thing about knowing there's a time jump because we all change from when we're younger. So it's even if you had come up with like specific things you were going to work on with each other, it shifts.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of understanding the characters and everybody sort of being on the same page, I feel like the writing was so good that it was in there,
Mhm.
and we didn't really like I didn't feel like I needed to give them pointers or notes on how they were playing me or them or us, because yeah, the
Yeah.
script just kind of did it for you.
Yeah. Well, Eddie's feelings about Billy are clear from the very beginning. There are a few lines that I pulled out here. Like,
Yeah.
we're the Dunn brothers, says Billy, and Eddie's like, for now.
Yeah.
We get Eddie saying, I knew Camilla from the neighborhood. You couldn't help but love her. Then she met Billy. We're getting some very, very clear indications of what's happening here in this dynamic. Eddie very reluctantly, on Billy's order, switches to bass when she
Hmm.
the band. I'm curious, like this was so early for Eddie. What makes him stay in the band at this point? The band isn't really doesn't it, there aren't high stakes right now. So what makes him stay?
I think, I mean, early on, I decided that Eddie really wanted Billy's approval above all else. He wanted his respect and his kind of brotherly love, like he had for the others. And I wanted him to see me as a peer. And really, without the band, I didn't have anything. There was nowhere for him to go. So he might have always acted like that, but in the same way that, at the end of the show, Billy calls him out. It's like you couldn't pull this off even if you wanted to, even if you tried. And it's true. Like he didn't really have what it took to be a leading man. He just liked to believe it. And I think that by the end of the show, he really has a lot of resentment and irritation towards um, Billy, but it's kind of, I always saw it as it being chipped away. Like it starts off, he's just like wanting to impress, and he constantly puts him to the side, ignores him. And I don't know, there's little minute things in there as well, like the show where I say for now, when you first meet the brothers as they're older, um, Billy's going around the circle and he's going, okay, and what do you want to be? And what do you want to do? Okay, cool. And then he skips me and goes to the next person. And, and it's little micro things where I'm constantly like overlooked almost deliberately by him. It's like he's kind of the one that's got a problem with me almost, is how it feels in Eddie's eyes. Um, and so that was kind of like the inspiration on my choices, I suppose, in that regard.
What a cool take on it. Okay, this is great. So it was the prize was his approval, and maybe it shifted over time. And your thoughts are, because I was going to ask about that sort of assessment at the end. Like you want this, but you couldn't even handle it if you had it. Sort of talk that Billy has with Eddie later. You agree? It sounds like.
I do. Eddie doesn't. I think I think he hasn't quite got what it takes. He didn't have the magnetism, and he didn't have the songs, and he didn't. He's a good guitar player. He could sing, but not as well as Billy, even if he liked to think he could. And I think, yeah, he's a little bit egotistically driven, always thinking that he's worth more than what he's got. And so that's, he gets quite pent up and frustrated about that, and everything seems to just fall into place for Billy. So it's easy to hate him. And plus, he has the girl I like. He's the front man, and he's sort of throwing it all away, and taking drugs all the time and mistreating Cammy, and yeah. So I think, don't know, did that answer your question?
It does, yeah. Let's look at episode 2. I'll take you there.
Mhm.
So the band has moved from Pittsburgh to LA. We get this diner scene that they rename the band to the Six. We see that Daisy's actually working in that diner, and it's sort of the first time they're all in the same place at once, even if they don't know it. We get Eddie wielding pocket toast to save money because that's how bad it is right now in terms of the finances. So it feels like a really formative scene to me. And I'm curious, especially with you all being in the same location at once here, tell us a little bit about working on this scene and what you were all working on there.
In terms of it being like a formative scene for the band.
Yeah, I like what jumps out at you when you think about that scene, especially knowing that for the first time we're getting you all into the same place.
What's funny is I feel like that was a very early on scene that we shot as well. It was one of the first, so it felt formative in my memory. I remember being quite nervous, because it was the first time we were all together properly, I think, and I was just kind of like, "Don't forget your line," hadn't quite settled in fully yet. But that's my personal experience. I loved the scene though; it was really funny one, a good chance to sort of see the dynamics of the band coming together, and yeah, it was a roadblock, for Billy because he wanted the band to be about the brothers, and I think as well. I remember there was a decision. I think for it was Karen that suggests it, right?
This, yeah,
Yeah,
the name of the band.
yeah. So I mean, in a way, it's better coming from her. I don't think anyone in the band could have necessarily suggested it apart from her, maybe.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, there
um,
might not have been buy-in.
yeah, I don't think it would have come so welcomely from Eddie, and Eddie can't suggest anything, because he's
Yeah.
constantly wrong or constantly like he doesn't have the bias of the brothers.
You were saying actually this brings up a question for me in terms of the timing, like order of when things were shot. Of course, this is an early on episode, so I would imagine this would have happened, early on in your shooting. But when you were shooting scenes, were you shooting scenes from multiple episodes at once, or how did this
Mhm.
work?
Um, it was multiple episodes at once, jumping all over the place. Very difficult to try and stay on top of it because it was such a big world, and also the fact that the episodes and the flashbacks, it was across 20 years, so I just kind of had to really, I mean, I did all my homework, but then I had to just really sort of rely on arriving and going, okay, what's going on, and just in the moment, you know all right, this is then, and I feel how, sorry. Okay. um but then as well, the second block of directing, I mean, I think really the second half of the season, it was like the first 5 episodes and then another five. And James Ponsoldt directed the first five, which was a lot more sort of narrative involved, and it was when the band was kind of getting together and starting out. Um, and Nzinga came on to direct the second half, and she's done loads of amazing like music videos, and it's very kind of music video and action kind of based, and has lots of experience there. So I know it was separated like that so that we had directors specific for certain vibes of episodes. But then within that, the whole thing was jumbled up constantly as well. And it's usually what they do is arrange it by location. So that's why we saw the guys when they were performing their bit, because they were shooting in the morning. They were shooting the young kids doing their bit because we were at the garage, and then the next scene at the garage is that, and so you just get everything done that's at that location so that you can then move on to the next place, because otherwise you'd be running around all over town.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So
Mm.
let's go to episode 3, Someone Saved My Life Tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've talked a little bit about the evolving feelings that Eddie had with Billy, but in this episode, the interviewer, Julia, asks if he's still upset about Billy, I guess, destroying the band's sort of opportunities when he got out of rehab. Um, and Eddie's response is, me, no, holding on to that shit will be the death of you. Um, but from that older vantage point, has Eddie actually let it go?
um no, I don't think so. No, I didn't play it that he had. I mean, I played it that he was saying that he had, but I think no. I think that is it's a sour thorn in his side that he's tried to pull out 1,000 times, but he can't. And he's probably still very bitter, frustrated, angry at the whole thing. I mean, something we talked about was like, if you notice, he's dressed up nice when he's in that interview, but the stage he's on is small. It's not like he's playing big venues still, he's left the band and carried on in music, but it's nothing like what he used to do. And the reality of him being without the band and on his own is that he's nowhere near as successful. And that was kind of and so I think he says, oh, you got to let go of that shit, man. It's going to be the death of you. But like, that's just what he's telling himself to not be completely depressed.
Hmm. It's interesting because this must have been one of those like clearly your thoughts about him and his thoughts about him are quite divergent. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
so
yeah. Well,
that
I'm
must
not
have been
living in
so
it, so I
fun.
can see
Yeah.
what's going on. But in order to play him, I had to live with a level of delusion about myself, my own situation.
Yeah. Well, that perfectly brings me to a little picture I want to put up on screen. My favorite Eddie moment
Mm-hmm.
of all of them. Let's see what we have here. So, okay. Uh, walk me through this. Hopefully you can see Eddie in the
Hmm.
chair. I saw this the second the screen cuts to this in the real time, and the first time I saw this episode, I thought, yeah, this is perfect. What's going on for Eddie here?
This is Eddie taking. When I was on this show, my hair and makeup, um, Liz, I was telling her that I had kind of decided in the back of my mind that Eddie's a little bit like Scar from The Lion King because he's pretending to be nice in a way, and he kind of is like, come to the dark side, come with me, you go off, go to rehab, yes, 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 I'll take the band with me and I'll be the front man, now's my time to pounce. And it kind of reminded me of that energy, and this sort of saying it without saying it, trying to take the throne. And I think this scene for me really exemplifies it. I mean, first of all, I look like, you know, Al Pacino in that movie. You know, kind of the way it's framed with that chair and his cigarette, his outfit, but it's almost like us against him almost. And I think the way that they kind of framed that, you know, if I remember it right, this was when he was coming back from rehab.
Yeah, he was
And
coming back from rehab. I don't know that he had officially said he's not going to be in, but Eddie is sort of like, leave if you're going to leave. Like, maybe it's time.
it was him leaving, wasn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, this is when
Yeah.
he's like, he's leaving. Yeah, and I think it was for Eddie, he was just like overjoyed at the opportunity to stomp this out finally. And it's look what you now you're doing it. You're giving me everything I need to tell you to do one, you know. And so I think it was him trying to step into his power. But again, it didn't work. I loved this scene. It was so like it felt so cool. Felt so cool to play. And it was like a chance to like actually show some frustration and let out a little bit of what he's constantly got boiling underneath. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
It,
see even, I mean, in this still shot, like Graham's face is like he's not really on board with what I'm doing. We're framed upon the three of us as if like we're, you know, it's us against him. And now they're on my side. But like Graham especially was just like, I don't know, man. Like I'm trying to get everybody with me, but it's not quite working.
yeah, and I love that comparison to Scar here. That gives me a whole fun way to tackle this when I think
Mm,
about the show. That's
yeah.
beautifully done. Yeah, this says so much with even just a picture. And in some ways, it's also like peak Eddie. You know, like this might be the best he ever has it in terms of what's in front of him or what he thinks is in
Hmm.
front of him.
Hmm.
Because the possibilities now are endless. Like they're
Yeah.
probably losing opportunities if Billy goes, but this is like the best timeline that's in front of him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Things could, this is the most hopeful things are going to look for me for the minute in the rest of the show.
yeah.
Because even when I stand up to him and say something to him, it's all downhill.
Hmm.
And at this point, it's like, oh, I might actually be getting what I want here. And oh, good, goodbye. You know, and
Yeah.
then when he comes back, it's like you can't just waltz back in, dude. And you know, I'm always kind of I'm trying to cling on to that in a way because I'm envious.
Well, and we also get, you know, in keeping with this particular moment in time for Eddie, we get an assortment of not passable auditions for people to potentially be the new Billy, which is so great and so comedic. And then we get Eddie coming in and saying, "But what about me?" And he auditions, and the stakes feel really high to me here. Um, Particularly for Eddie in this situation. So, what tell me about that sequence because you all had to like sit through all those auditions and then you have to do
Mm.
this probably very high stakes situation for Eddie.
Yeah, a couple things to say about that. There was first of all, they we all wished that like they should have put the cameras on us first when they were filming their bits because the first time we watched it, We were dying because we didn't know what they were going to do. We didn't know exactly what we were in store for. Um, and our reactions were so genuine. And it was just so funny. But um, yeah, that was a funny thing. Very nerve-wracking. I'm a musician for real, and I care about that, you know. And in a sense, it was like a real audition because it was a performance that was going to be seen by millions and millions of people, and one of the few performances on the show that wasn't pre-recorded. So I was very nervous of screwing it up, you know, and then also yeah, it was just a very that was it was a cool scene. You know, it was his chance to kind of shine for a second. You know, and I think he's led the band for a minute, but it didn't last long.
Yeah, I mean, time wise, it's a little hard to tell how much time actually lapses in this
Mm,
iteration,
mhm.
but it doesn't seem like a huge amount of time. It seems like we get to the next situation
I
fairly
feel like that,
quickly.
yeah, they get through
Yeah.
like a couple of rehearsals or something. I don't. There was no
Yeah.
show we saw or anything like that.
Hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about episode 4, I Saw the Light. So, we're going to start seeing the band play on bigger and bigger stages, starting with the Diamond Head Festival. So, I guess this is actually a more broad question than just looking at one episode, but what can you tell us about shooting these big concert scenes? Like, how much of this was you all playing in front of any,
Hmm.
audiences of any size on actual stages versus how much of this was Hollywood magic, TV magic? Walk us through what was happening to make this.
Um, so we had a couple of stages that we used, and I think it was in total there was maybe 3 or 4 stages for the whole show, and they would make each stage look like different stages in different places. There was one stage in particular that we had to do that with. I think Diamond Head was just the one stage, obviously, because that looked so specific. But there was one stage that was when it was getting to all the big shows. It was like we're playing in Austin, we're playing in this place, but it was all the same one. And actually, Diamond Head, we had probably 200 people in the audience because there was all the extras that you saw, and they were all there anyway. But then they would have them. It was crazy what they did actually, movie magic and how they do it. But they had this giant camera on a big crane, and it was trained like, well, not trained, it was a robot. You don't need to train it, but it would do the exact same move over and over again. And so they would put the crowd here, and they would film us doing the performance, and the crowd would be over there, and then they would do the exact same move again, and we'd be doing the same thing on stage, and then the crowd would be moved, and they would do that and then patch it together afterwards, and then the rest would be filled in with CGI. And then when we did all of the bigger shows towards the end, there was 3 people in the audience. It was our music supervisor and the producers, and they were all going like this and screaming, and our assistants and people doing like handstands and jumping around and giving us as much energy as they could. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience to kind of try and imagine that many people, because you didn't even know either like how big it was going to be, like how big were they going to make it look, how big of a stadium is this, but so we just had to dive in and really use our imaginations.
So in those moments when you get on bigger stages and like in those final episodes and we get stuff like Daisy interacting with the crowd, um
Mm.
ha was that like the 3 people there who were like helping her crowd surf or something, or like what?
The crowd surfing, no, they would have had that would have been a day they brought in like 100
They
people.
brought in some people for,
And again,
yeah.
it's just like they just condensed that little area and then they filmed the bit that's needed and then
Yeah,
that's it.
wild.
Yeah, I mean, it was partly down to the fact that it was COVID.
Yep.
I think we would have had a lot more extras, but they just weren't allowed. And it was all so tight that, yeah.
It's tricky to think how you as an actor put yourself in the shoes of somebody on a stage with that size of an audience when the audience isn't really, I mean, I guess that's the exercise of acting, right? But
Mm.
I would think the energy is hard to approximate. Um,
Mhm.
so like to think like the bigger the stage was in the show, the fewer the people there were.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly how it was. It was kind of, I mean, even like the small stages when we were playing, I'm forgetting all the names of all the places, like the Whiskey, and the Troubadour. It's been like a year and a half since we did all this. I'm like, when we did those, there was that was a real crowd, So and that was packed, but it was a small venue, So this, yeah, it is the bigger the show's got, the less people we had generally.
Yeah. From an
Yeah,
energy
I mean,
stand.
I played gigs in bands, all through my 20s. I was in a band, and so I have a little bit of an idea of what it's like to be on a stage, and I love the thrill, and I can kind of replicate that a little bit. But I've never done, a giant stadium of hundreds of thousands of people, so it's quite a tricky one to imagine whether I've done a stage before or not, because the magnitude is huge. But then also, if you do a stage that big, you've generally been playing so much that you're used to it. It doesn't phase you. So it's almost like your first thought might be, oh, I need to be like, whoa, wow, it's so big. But then actually, probably no, it's much, you'd be used to it. So, it shouldn't blow you away that much, I don't think.
Mm,
But it'd always be great.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
hard one to pinpoint exactly how you'd feel. Just got to kind of go with it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the energy of the Ooh La La scene, the house party when the lights go out
Oh
in
yeah.
this episode four. Um, what a beautiful sort of quiet atmospheric setting, and then you get this energy. This needs to be sort of a magical energy of
Hmm.
the band sort of coming together with Daisy. What was it like shooting this one?
Um, Warm. Oh, it was warm in there and smoky. Because we were all smoking fake cigarettes, which is that really like strong woody smell. And the smoke machines and candles on, and a lot of people packed in. So it was tight and it was warm. But it was very beautiful. And I mean, honestly, just like every scene on that show was magical to be a part of, because the people that I was working with were all great. Everybody was doing a really good job. Everybody was very passionate and committed to it all. And it just kind of, you had to be so there and so in it to match up to that, And and as soon as you give into that feeling and everything, it's kind of always very just enjoyable, magical.
Yeah. One dynamic that I'm interested to know more about, because we don't get a lot of it in the show. Obviously Eddie has his issues with Billy. Daisy has her issues with Billy. Very different dynamic there. But in episode five, which is Fire, we're going to see Daisy. She joins the Six at Sound City, and she's pushing back on the way Billy is running
Mm-hmm.
things. And Eddie tells us in an interview, she was saying things I've been saying since 69. Um, and then later in that episode, he says it wasn't just the Billy show anymore. Daisy did that for us. When you think back on the whole series, though,
Hmm.
if you think ahead to what he then later experiences with Daisy, what does Eddie actually think of Daisy?
I think he loves her. Like, not in like he fancies her. Although we know he likes her legs,
Yeah.
from that one scene. Um, but no, I think that the fact that she comes in just with a middle finger up to Billy is everything that he's been wanting, and he can't get away with it. And she can, because the label's pushing her, and everybody seems so on board for her, and Billy can't do anything about it, but she just keeps getting up in his face in a way that if I tried, he'd probably punch me. And so I think I find it very satisfying to watch and amusing. Nothing more amusing than watching somebody rile Billy up.
Hmm.
Only
Yeah.
once I've gotten sick of him. Again, at the beginning, I was trying to keep it that he's just like wants attention and loves him and gets slowly broken down. But by the time Daisy comes on board, it's like, oh, good. Yeah, get him.
It's
Sick of
like
that guy.
it's your turn.
Yeah.
Well, she can accomplish something maybe
Uh
with
huh.
this. He doesn't have the Eddie just doesn't have the status with Billy to do it, I guess.
Mm.
So, okay. Well, okay. Environment wise, episode 6, whatever gets you through the night, we're gonna get the photo shoot for the album cover, and this
Mhm.
looks when I watched this scene back, it looks like there was a lot of wind. It doesn't look like the elements were your friend there. What do you remember about this day?
Freezing, freezing. It was hailstoning. It was like we were in the desert, very, very high wind and hail. Yeah, it was very, very, very cold. Um, but really fun. With acting, there's often situations where you're very cold or very hot or sweaty or muddy or dirty or this or that, but it's always just like, yeah, this is what I want to be doing, you know. But I remember us being given um, our warm coats a lot, and they were like building little tents with big heaters and stuff. And we were all just like, if we weren't doing the scenes, we were like, oh, come on, let's. It was that was definitely, yeah, it was one of the tougher days, for the elements. But we had a lot of fun. It was great, and they looked after us. So
It's one of those like living the dream days, like trying to stay warm.
yeah, yeah, it was very cold. Yeah,
Oh my
the
goodness.
wind is what really, didn't help.
Yeah. Well, this is a an important episode for Eddie as well, because after years of wanting to be with Camilla, Eddie and Camilla finally have an affair,
Mm.
one night thing. I don't know. By episode 8, Camilla's like, "Yep, that was one time only,"
Mhm.
and she says she's glad it happened. In the end, is Eddie glad this happened? Like, did this make things better or worse for Eddie?
Better. I think he wanted her forever, and yes, he'd like her to have run off with him after that. And he doesn't get that, and maybe that's a little bit heartbreaking because she just goes back to Billy. But at least he got to experience it, and at least he, had some kind of a one up on Billy. I think that was nice for him, and I think he spends so much time with Billy, kind of always getting what he wants. It was nice to get what he actually wanted himself as well.
Yeah, at least he had that night.
Yeah, yeah, and at least he knows that she is attracted to him. That's an ego boost, and at least she, like I think. Well, so I might not be able to be the leader of the band, but at least I managed to kiss the girl I like, and all of that. So I
He
think
gets
overall,
everything he wants for a minute.
for a second,
Like be the
yeah,
leader of the band for a second. Camila
hmm,
for a second.
yeah,
Yeah.
always in second place, man.
My goodness. Well, okay.
Ready.
Yeah. I debate whether to sort of combine two questions here, but in episode 8, looks like we made it. We get a bunch of tour bus scenes. And I guess this is where I put my how did this look on the day hat on. It looks like a very tight space to shoot in. Like there were a lot of constraints there. So when we get scenes like this, what is this actually like for you on the day?
Get me off the bus. Are we done? Can we step off? That's what it's like. Yeah. I mean, out of all of the locations, you're picking up on real things. It was cold and windy in the desert, and the bus was. I mean, that was in the height of summer, and we were wearing wool shirts with wool trousers and wool jackets, velvet, thick, thick. Um, the 70s clothes were not breathable fabrics. It was very, 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 very hot. So we were sweaty, and there was no real room. And then we'd have to rehearse, and then with the camera crew. So you've got 5 people in the cast, and then there's a camera crew, and then directors need to direct, and yeah, it was kind of like as little time as we can have the actors on the bus as possible would be best, because it was just, yeah, it was very we all had like fans, for as soon as the camera stopped to be like get the windows open and
It's funny to watch those scenes back because I think it might have been sound design that really helped it along. It seems like there are a lot of people on this bus, but really we're just seeing the same people we've been seeing the whole time for the most part.
yeah,
Um,
we had a couple of groupies and stuff around.
yeah. Yeah. What a, oh yeah, constrained spaces for a whole day. That's a lot. Um,
And those days would, yeah, they had their challenges.
yeah. And actually this does sort of tie in to something I want to ask about episode 9. It feels like the first time. I love the look of this scene in the beginning where, Daisy OD'd, she's okay now, but she's confronting Nikki. And I love I guess the blocking of it. I don't know, just you were in a hallway, and I love this idea of like
Mhm.
all of the band members looking out of their doorways and then sort of coming closer. We get the guys all coming to the front to deal with this confrontation with Nikki. Um, it it's I don't know how complex this was to actually make this happen, given sort of the long shot of it all, but it
Mm.
looks great. So, working on this on the day, what is this like to try to make this come together?
Well, we'd all be in separate rooms on either side of the corridor. I mean, it was a big sort of built stage. It was a stage, so it wasn't an actual hotel, which was quite interesting as well because it looks like one.
It does,
Very
yeah.
convincing. But if you looked up, there was no ceiling, and we'd kind of just have somebody with us in each room, and they have the walkie-talkie and a thing, and they just give you the little tap on the shoulder, when it's time for you to go out, and plus you can hear the scene happening, and once you've done it once, it's like we could hear the argument, so we kind of knew when to step out. And once they've got the first one down, it's kind of like, all right, I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's
I love how that scene.
choreography,
Wow,
really.
cool.
Yeah. Because you come in kind of blind for that beginning part, and the timing of it was beautiful.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So in this episode, Billy is going to take Eddie's place in the encore at their hometown show. It's the final straw. Yep. And it's, in episode 10, we're going to get Eddie finally having it out with Billy. You
Hmm.
know, I guess it might be obvious, but what makes this the last straw? Like, why is this too much now? Like, why not before? Why this moment?
Um, because yeah, I mean, it's like I think there's been a lot of things building up in Eddie's head. The pressure cooker's been boiling, and like I say, I've been treating it from like the very first episode when he skips over me with the question, and I'm like, oh, you're not going to go to me, right? You're going to leave me till last. I see. Okay, I'll keep trying to get you to love me. And as it goes, it's like it's getting chipped down, and then right at the end, I have one part in the show where I get to do my thing and I get to be a guitarist again for a second and I do the song with Daisy. And my grandma's there. It's the grandma, it's like it taking that away from me at the hometown show when my grandma's there, when really like you're up front of the stage for the whole thing. He knows I want to be the front man. He knows I want to play the guitar. And I just think it's like it felt like a jab and like a dig and like he did it as a power move, knowing full well that was a moment I probably looked forward to. And he does it with no, it's so throwaway. It's just he's just kind of like, yeah, give me that, and walks off. And it's kind of like, so I think it was just the um, straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. So this brings me to a line that I've always thought was interesting from the last episode in Rock and Roll Suicide. Warren is trying to give Eddie a reality check. Like, we are actually very lucky. And he goes into detail about why they're so lucky. Eddie says, I think I might be looking for a little more out of life than you
Mhm.
are. If Eddie could articulate it, what is he actually looking for
Um,
at this point?
at this point, I feel like I don't know, like that line. I feel like he's a little deluded. But I think that it's his ego, and he thinks that he's believes a lot in himself, thinks that he is owed and should be the front man still, and should be, like just always more. It doesn't like he's talking about. look what we've got. We've got everything. My wife's a model and an actress, and we've got millions of bucks, and we're successful, and you're in the biggest band in the world. It's like you've kind of got everything. It's like, well, I'm looking for a little bit more than you. I think you'll find. Well, it's just like you've just listed all of the biggest things you can have, really. So, like, how much more could you be looking for? I think that with Eddie, it's just that he is looking. Nothing is enough at that point, and that's a lesson that he's got to learn, and he will be forced to learn by the time the band breaks up, probably much later, and he'll go, "Oh, you know." um, yeah,
Yeah,
I think he's looking for something that he can't have because it's more than it's possible and more than reality.
it's in him, not external, that he
Mm.
needs it. Yeah. Um, so, uh, across all of the episodes, we're going to get interview scenes. I imagine you probably like sat down and did like banked a whole bunch of them in a day kind of thing. I don't know.
All of it.
What was this all of it? You did all of it in one day
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so it was basically just you monologuing for a whole day.
They asked the
Sort
questions.
of. They asked questions. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they would ask the questions, and we just kind of had to rifle through each answer. I mean, honestly, it was one of the easiest days, you know, because the answers weren't ever that long. It wasn't really like I had to learn like a big long chunk. I just took the time in advance to kind of feel comfortable with those answers. And then, yeah, it was just, one location. We just sat in a spot on a little spotlight on a little stage. And yeah, somehow it was one of the less demanding days, really, in many ways.
Hmm. Um, a quick question. What was your favorite song from the band?
Um, I think Kill You to Try.
Mm.
Yeah, I just really liked the groove. And obviously I was always coming from a bass perspective, and it was really like about what was nice for me to play. And there was something about that.
Yeah.
Just how cheeky the groove was. And it was always kind of like, I don't know. And that song came in a lot later than a lot of the others as well.
I mean, it was swampy, you know?
It was swampy.
What a great word. Um, I knew exactly what she meant too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so
it
good.
was. That bass line is swampy, man.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. This is obviously this is a period piece. So what were your favorite elements of the period that were depicted in this show?
I love playing 70s. The first movie I ever did and my first acting experience was in the 70s, a film called Northern Soul. And it, it gave me that feeling of immersion, really. Like the further from now our costumes can be, for me, I find it like it's always, or even not from now, but like the more far from myself a costume can be, the more I feel like I step into a character, and the character plays itself almost more so than like a lot of imagination. It's kind of one of my favorite feelings. But I liked the lenses, the grain. I believe we were shooting it all on like 70s lenses and things like that. And just yeah, getting to be in the costumes really in a way that I'm not like dressing up for a costume party or this is legit. I have a very strong purpose here, and damn right I'm wearing these flares. For me, it's always the costume and the cars, and something from my perspective as an actor that I find fascinating every single time I'm on a set is getting to experience a scene, and then everything gets reset and you get to do it again. And then like the that car drives past at the exact same moment, and the people go this way. And this is like slight tangent from your question, but getting to see all of that happening with 70s stuff doing it for me is just its extra level of cool. And it was such a cool era.
And so one of the things I find really interesting about this show, when you watched all 10 episodes, and it's even more interesting considering that you were shooting from multiple episodes at a time,
Hmm.
is that for me, all the characters evolve both in terms of like style and confidence, and because that's the exercise, you're becoming a bigger band.
Mhm.
For you, like, in what ways was Eddie evolving, let's say, in terms of his style or his demeanor?
I feel like, I mean, Eddie's evolution's a funny one because his was kind of just coming in with high hopes, thinking he's going to be, lead guitarist in a band and potentially be a singer. And, you know, it's really kind of generally a character arc is like, oh, they start out like bad at something, and by the end they've changed and they're good. But for him, it was kind of the opposite, and he kind of came in full of hopes and it got squished, and then he kind of did a bit of a what do you call it when someone's the bad guy,
Like a villain?
character arc, the evil guy character arc, um where he gets changed by his circumstances, or at least in his perception of it. From the outside he is just a bit of a dick, but he kind of, um I feel like, yeah, his arc kind of goes from a more positive place into a more negative place. And I think by the very end of it, that you don't really get to see, except perhaps when he's in the interviews, I think there's like a deep sadness and a deep kind of regret, and a deep kind of wishing for things to have gone a different way. And I think he does kind of learn his lessons, but he wouldn't admit it.
Mm. So I guess just for you as a human working on this show, I guess, are there any other experiences or moments that you wanted to share that I haven't asked about, but you want to make sure the world knows, like, this is what it was like to work on this show?
Um, I think I just do credit to everybody. It was a very passionate production, and it felt like a family, and everyone was on the same level. And Sam and Riley were incredible leaders, as one and two on the call sheet kind of thing. They really set a good tone and really brought like so much energy in their A games all the time. Um, there was no complaints. No one was unhappy on that set. And it was very long hours and it was a big job, and I think, yeah, like the amount of work that went into everybody being able to play those songs was just such a lot. And people really were very passionate. And so I just, yeah, I guess a tale of passion really is what I could talk about in terms of something that doesn't necessarily get seen. Um, all the months of prep and the time that we kind of put in at the studios,
Yeah.
you know.
Uh, I know this has been a very complicated time in your industry, but is there anything on the horizon that you can talk about that you want us to watch out for?
Um, yeah, I've got um, I've got a movie called Triton that is supposed to be coming out at some point, but I'm not sure when. Which is kind of cool. It's like a fantasy, sci-fi, scary, weird, dark, romantic, but kind of. And it's about demigods. I won't say too much, but that we shot that last year or the year before. It's kind of hard to remember at this point. And I got a few indie projects that I'm attached to at the moment, but I won't talk about those for the moment because things haven't quite gone into motion yet. And there's another film there's a couple floating around that just haven't come out yet, and so there's another one called The Happy Worker that I'm hoping at some point soon can see the light of day. I shot that 6 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So there's been a couple of things that I've worked on. I've got three that are supposed to be coming out soon. Um, and at the moment, I'm looking for new projects and kind of, yeah. There's also three this year that I'm supposed to be doing, but again, I'm just waiting for everything. I'm kind of waiting to see how this year is gonna line up because there's things flying around.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk about this show, to do a deep-ish dive about
Hmm.
Eddie and to give us your thoughts about what it was actually like to work on it.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And, I think it was for all of us. And we had such a good time. And they're all like brothers and sisters really to me now. And I hope I get to work with all of them again one day. And I hope they're all doing well now.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll hang out just for a little bit extra here, but to everybody who's watching this, I hope you enjoyed the interview and please go out there and watch Daisy Jones and the Six. Bye, everyone.
Peace.